Anyone went to a party yesterday? No? Only me? Seriously? Come on, you guys are weak. I'm tired, okay? But still, we have another party today, so we can keep going. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying the conference so far. Yes, no? Are you guys enjoying the conference or not? Okay, there we go. So today we're going to open the stage with, so the stage is going to be running this morning with two very, very interesting topics that are, I guess, acquiring more and more steam as we talk. The obvious AI, artificial intelligence, and then we will move into cybersecurity that's also touching, as we speak, on the AI space also. So AI meets cybersecurity and a bunch of stuff. But to talk about not just AI, but the future of AI. You know, we go like way beyond. People are now saying, AI, what is that? We should be doing AI. This is like blockchain. We should be doing blockchain. What is it? I don't know. Just say blockchain and it'll just work. We'll go to the meeting with that. But now here, we're going to talk about not just AI, but the future of AI. And to talk about that, I want to welcome our three next panelists, starting with our moderator, Francisco de Souza from Weber Cortical. Big applause, Francisco. Thank you for joining. Please, Jasper Masselman, principal at HB Ventures. Big applause. Jasper, pleasure having you again. Last but not least, Marta Balbas, manager at Applied Intelligence at Accenture Iberia. Big applause. Marta, thank you very much for joining. Guys, the stage is yours. Have fun.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. We seem to have quite a big topic today. Everybody's talking about it. We might just start by giving a short statement on how you relate to AI and therefore the future and what you think of it personally. Might we start?
Okay, so if I have to define personally what is AI for me, is the part of science and the part of industry and many different places in life where machines are able to make decisions rationally. And I think we could stop on this point by now, because when we speak of artificial intelligence, many times the question that arises is, are machines able to think by themselves? And I would say we are not at this point right now. They may make decisions, but always programmed by humans. So they are just responding to a coding, even if this is not deterministic.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
I mean, at the moment, AI is just machine learning, basically. And whereas currently we're mainly trying to do predictions based on historic data, so it makes us understand complex data much easier. I think in the future, hopefully, we can even simulate stuff much easier. So it's not just historic data, and we just take the pattern and just move it into the future, but we can actually simulate what would happen based on algorithms, genetic algorithms, stuff like that.
Yeah, I do very much agree with this, that currently what we call AI, and we are sort of in the middle of a hype on many different levels, but most of it is actually very, very sophisticated statistics to some point. Yeah, it's really number crunching. Yeah. And that would also be my sort of starting point. If we want to approach future, let's have a look where we are currently. And so there are first voices coming up that there might be also a number of issues today with this fact that we create those huge statistical models that people are sort of lemmingized, if you want, because everybody is driven towards some statistical mean of behavior. Do you have a take on those kinds of problems?
I mean, you're posing a problem that sometimes is not there still. Everyone and every company, of course, want to be data-driven and therefore a statistic. If you go to the philosophical point of what is statistics and how can we rely on that, this is, of course, a different matter, and it's something we should approach as well together. And the point there, or the big question is, should we rely on statistics to make some decisions that could have an ethical part behind? And I think this is something we start dealing with now, and will be part of the future of artificial intelligence, but not from the scientific perspective, but something that should be
in society.
In society, of course, hand in hand. Yeah.
I don't think it's a statistical mean, because AI can also extract the best part from statistics or from a sample.
Yeah.
So we have 2 companies in the portfolio. I have actually 4 that do machine learning, but 2 that try to augment humans in a better way. So they try to find the best patterns and then help other humans to also reach that level. So it's not about the mean, but it's to be like the outlier. So one is listening to sales calls. They say, hey, what are you saying there the whole time? By the way, you should say this at the end of the call because other calls were much better when they said this at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can extract words and say, don't swear at your client. Maybe you should mention the brand name a little bit more often because you're selling here, by the way. And another company is reading the emails and it's also doing chatbots and it's just helping the humans to give the good answer. Because some humans, especially inexperienced ones, when they start, they don't know what to do. They actually need coaching. But the AI can say, hey, your other colleagues did this. Why don't you do that as well? So it's actually elevating.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I say statistic, I do actually mean that we do number crunching and we do this at a very sophisticated level that no human could conceptualize sort of an algorithm like this mentally. Yeah? But nevertheless, I mean, I observe very often that I think I am confronted with AI when I do Amazon shopping, for example, and then the system behaves in a certain way when I want to go to the checkout. And sometimes it makes me think that is actually the system so intelligent, or am I adapting to what I think the system expects me to behave like? You know, this kind of circle.
I love it when you buy a washing machine and it shows you another washing machine. You're like, I already have one. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of showing a decalcifier or something like that. Yeah. So this is where we are today, and I think we also see sometimes limitations. This doesn't work for everything, but to step. One step further in the future, I mean, one big topic is, of course, jobs and AI, I think, and that's definitely worth also a view. What would be your take if we hear things like AI will eliminate majority of the jobs out there and things like that?
I don't think so. On the one hand, artificial intelligence has come to make things that humans are not able to do, because we are not so fast as machines doing some tasks. And on the other hand, they are taking tasks that are where humans cannot add big value and that are boring for us. So might be some jobs has to be to specify and be more specific, and also a lot of new jobs are going to be created. But I don't think this is going to be a big issue, because probably the time scale we are talking about is long enough so that people can adapt. That's one of the things. And on the other, I think they are just going to introduce some new things we can profit from. Like, for instance, we are doing things differently. We are not only doing different things. And one of the things we're working with, like ventilation systems in tunnels, we have been ventilating by years and years, but we are now introducing artificial intelligence to make more efficient ventilation. And this is something that no human is going to do, but a machine. So.
Yeah, I mean, but on the other hand, there are cab drivers who should already start figuring out what they could do in the future. I mean, it's just a matter of time, I think, until cabs will...
Yeah, sure.
The thing about neural networks is it's just approximations. So as long as it's not 100% correct, you probably always have a cab driver who has to do something when there's a bad decision. So what we think and what I think is it will make our lives so much easier, especially for repetitive tasks, because what can AI currently do? I'll give you an example with children. If you show a picture of a zebra, your children, the next picture, the child will say, that's a zebra. For AI, you have to show, I don't know, 1 million pictures, probably less nowadays, but a lot, right? And then if you show a horse, it can't even say, okay, that's similar, but,
from it.
but different, exactly. And so that's where the human comes into play. Creativity, adaptability, and machine learning cannot do that at the moment, but what it can do is it can free you from those boring, repetitive tasks. We have a company called Zeitgold. They automate accounting end-to-end. So people look at invoices, they type it in, and then it's processed. And that's what the machine learning can do, but then the accountant can interpret it, can consult the client more. They actually free more time. Currently, people are really blocked by very boring, repetitive tasks, and you still need them for the smart. So actually, we think, and all our companies seeing that with the clients, that we can make people more productive and better, and hence elevating actually the value add that everybody can do.
Yeah, I mean, technology usually starts harmless. It just turns out later on what happens. I mean, if you consider the technology nowadays might not yet be there, but with all that focus and that hype that is around the domain, I do expect that there will be some major breakthroughs.
Yeah, sure.
To some degree.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my company, for example, we are working in natural language understanding. Yeah. We also started with very sort of simple tasks where the people who were supposed to handle that just said, I'm so glad we have a piece of software now that sort of eliminates that part. In the meantime, things have evolved to a point that we are taking away not tasks from paralegals or secretaries of paralegals, but from actual attorneys.
Yeah.
So there are, in some of our current projects, we actually replace the work of an attorney to some degree with what we do. And this is just a snapshot. Yeah? I mean, in a couple of years, hopefully that will be
But I'm sure if
improving.
you ask them what you took away from them, if they like it, that they don't do that anymore, I think they're pretty happy because it's
this is correct. But if you ask a majority of the, let's say, low-level work with attorneys that has to be done by, let's say, some junior attorneys, they might say, okay, I don't like it a lot, but I'm glad I'm able to do it and to have a job.
But to follow your point, I fully agree that it will take away work, obviously, because people are sometimes employed just to do this repetitive task. With a company in Tel Aviv, they do transcription. So they listen to a video, it's mainly education or depositions for legal, and then they transcribe it to text for people with hearing problems, for people who can't hear at all. And obviously, there are currently people doing everything, so they listen to it. And now you have an engine that does 90%, and the rest is done by a human. So there's less work for people, but the rest of the work that's remaining is actually high-qualitative work.
Absolutely. And I mean, we have seen this the same thing in manufacturing. A couple of decades ago, there were a lot of people assembling cars. Now, if you go in a modern car production site, you rarely see anyone.
But they're still there. And Tesla tried to do it end-to-end, although all the car manufacturers, the Spanish, the French, the German, they didn't do it. And Tesla didn't ask why, and there's a reason for it, because humans have a better feeling for that production.
But nevertheless, we know, I think, that these feelings will be at some point simulated too. And there are other regions where it's not so much about feelings. I mean, in medicine, for example. I mean, if you have a real medical expert system, it will always be superior to what a human is able to do.
Yes, but I mean, in this field is clear, and it's not a matter of taking the doctor apart. I mean, what we are going to provide, or what technology is going to provide, is a better diagnostic and help the doctor or the medicine make the right decisions. So, but this is a field where we are always going to need the human.
I'm not so sure about this.
I think the discussion will be, where does the future of AI really come into play faster than in other places?
Exactly.
I think in Europe we will rely a lot on those suggestion systems in driving, in medicine, in accounting, wherever. But in China, I don't know, we should maybe ask Chinese people, but I'm pretty sure they will do experiments just automating end-to-end. Just because they don't have the people, just because it's growing very fast, and they do it.
But all in all, I fully agree with you. I mean, I do think that in medicine we are going to contribute something, but not eliminate the facultatives. Whereas in other areas, and you mentioned a couple, where you just have to transcribe things, or you're going to substitute human jobs. I mean, we cannot deny it. And I think this is an issue we have all, and not only scientific, as a society, to go how we evolve and how we adapt to this new reality that is coming. I mean, the fact that there's going to be problems or issues around it doesn't mean it does not make sense to go there. I think it makes sense to go there, but we really have to think of the other part.
Yeah. And people are always driven by improving. We want to progress.
Yeah.
We say, hey, I'm doing this. This is stupid. I'm doing that every day. And there's robotic process automation. It's basically scripting. So at the beginning, people were outsourcing to India, and then they said, okay, that's really repetitive. Let's write a script doing that. And nowadays, it's even machine learning, so a bit more adaptive and at scale. We will always ask ourselves, how can we do this better?
Yeah, but we are still far away from a free climbing robot.
Yeah, sure.
But on the other hand, I mean, again, assuming that we have this kind of breakthrough that some people hope for, especially in the more cognitive parts of AI, I'm not sure if in some 10 years from now, if I happen to have a rare disease, that I really rely on sort of the special case of a special doctor, or rather a huge database that knows even papers that have been published this morning before I come and ask for a diagnosis. Yeah? Yeah. So the interesting thing is that very obviously what the aim of this AI movement, let's call it, is to also replace some so-called white-collar jobs. Yeah? And this is, I think...
replace and increase. I mean, there are tasks that we are not doing. White-collar could be an attorney or could be a doctor. They are not able just to review the whole databases of articles or laws or cases to make a decision and to compare. So this is something new. It's just an improvement in their daily job.
And I'm egoistic here. Yeah. I don't want any doctor, I want the best doctor for my disease. And I'm not so sure if the guy around the corner is the best one, but through better data usage, maybe it's machine learning, maybe it's just a database, a good one, I get access to that.
To choose
amazing.
The right
Exactly,
doctor.
And the treatment, especially cancer, if you have very targeted treatment, I want that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
but you might at some point also want the expertise of an
exactly.
artificial intelligence.
But I don't want,
combination of both.
I don't want that the bad guy keeps his job, right? Just to to have a job and treats me in a bad way. I want the best guy.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. I mean, where on the other hand, I would, for example, as a cancer patient, where I would insist to be treated by a human, is if I need to go from one treatment station to the next, I would like to have a human holding my hand and talking to me. And
this is something won't be replaced because there is also something human in that.
Absolutely.
We see that. So this voice company I2X. We see that from every client, they say, we have this discussion, shall we automate it at some point? Because if I can coach the people live by listening and give them, I can actually maybe have an AI talking. But at the end of the day, this nuance is that a human voice can give and this empathy, maybe in 10, 20 years, I have no idea. But in the future, they always say, no, we won't replace the human. We want to augment the human. We want to help them. That's cool. But
so
that's
like cars don't replace horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure,
well,
but I mean,
that's different. That's different.
It's not only artificial intelligence, it's technology and it's our history actually that is always things replacing things and
because both
humanity adapting.
Yeah, both were driven by humans.
Exactly.
I mean, as long as they are driven. I mean, there are authors, for example, like Yuval Harari, who sort of sketches this scenario of the not useful human who has no place anymore in the economy and things like that, which is, I think, a reasonable thought to follow. I mean, we shouldn't just put our heads in the sand and not look at this.
And I agree with you. I mean, in Jülich, I think it's Jülich in Germany, they're trying to replicate the human brain. At the moment, it's several hundreds of square meters of computers, so it's a really big brain.
Like the first hard disk.
Exactly. So, and it will get smaller and smaller. Let's see how long it takes.
Yeah. So I think that there is a lot to, on one hand, consider regulation, for example. I think it's more and more important to take regulation to a more general sort of use, also in domains where we haven't expected it. I mean, now there are people talking about regulating social media to some degree. So, I mean, we will see what comes there.
There are already some regulations on that already. Only some.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, of course, if we just continue with that trajectory of constant improvement of also cognitive capabilities, there will be an issue with all kind of jobs where knowing a lot is key. I think that is where we will start to compete with computers. And I mean, in the end.
But I think it's more a factor of ethics and where we want to go than computing. I mean, if you make a reflection and you think in biometrics, for instance, something started like 30 years ago, and at the beginning only police services and things like that, you use your dactylar or everything, your fingerprint, to recognize you. And this is something that nobody, or most of the people are accepting, no one. But if you go to, okay, everyone is going to have my biometrics for everything I do, and I'm going to track me, then it becomes a matter. So it's just not the technology, it's not what we are able to do, what machines are able to do, it's always in life. How we are going to apply it.
It's the policies around
It's the policies. I mean, it's a matter of policies, it's not a matter of science.
And I think that will also postpone a little bit the AI development, because we see it with accountants. Accountants have 5% errors when they type in stuff. With the machine, you would expect 0 error. The same for lawyers. Why? Because it's a big black box, the neural networks. Nobody really knows what's going on in there. And that's when there is a mistake, you will not trust the engine anymore, because it's just a prediction, right? So it's the same for cars. If the cars fail, you don't get in there again, right? So you wait until it's getting better. And I think that will postpone it a lot, but also with law, it's very important who when you make the mistake, who's responsible, and that discussion will be very, very tough, because as long as it's a black box, no human wants to be responsible.
It's the owner of the algorithm.
But I do not think, for instance, in law, I mean, machines are not going to make decisions, or maybe not, or at least not in the next 10, 20 years.
For our accounting company, they already do. It's end-to-end, completely machine.
They make the decisions?
Yeah, and the company takes the responsibility when there's a mistake.
Okay.
So they are liable for it.
And I
but
think,
for accounting, that's okay. For self-driving cars,
it's not.
or planes, maybe in the future.
But I'm absolutely convinced that this will happen to some degree, because that's precisely what we do AI for, is to have the computer make decisions. I'm not really sure that this will be the way how it's done today, because it's so different from how we process data. That's something that I also investigate in my company, because we precisely by coming from a domain where we have worked with natural language processing in a very conventional way, and there is a ceiling of quality you can achieve, because the whole approach is very sort of numeric and computational, and this is very different from what we humans do. And therefore, I'm sort of not very much talking about these Big Bang theories of AI, but nevertheless, I think there can be a major sort of step ahead. Similar like steam machines who started the mechanization, but they were not the actual scaling technology for mechanization. And same thing, something like that could also happen with AI, I think.
However, I would like to make a reflection altogether, because I mean, when we speak of what's the future of artificial intelligence, I mean, we are always coming to the big examples that are very controversial, where we have to make policies, where we have to think very carefully what's next. But this is not the most that we are having in our lives of artificial intelligence right now. I mean, this is the big picture, this is what brings attention, of course. But if you said it at the very beginning, we have artificial intelligence in what we do with our cellulars at every moment when we are going shopping, or we have artificial intelligence when someone is taking video from us and they're going to identify security breaches, whatever, that are not controversial, and where artificial intelligence just can help people doing their jobs. Of course, we have to tackle this other legs, right? That is the issue in artificial intelligence. But I think it's also very positive to bring to society that artificial intelligence is so, in many other places that are not controversial, where we are helping, or where it is helping a lot, doing our jobs or having our daily life. But we have to think of the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of responsibility, and therefore I think it's important to have policies that make sure that people who are responsible for certain aspects effectively are responsible.
That's why it's good to start with supportive or augmenting systems, because then at the end of the day, the human is still taking the decision, so he's or she's responsible.
I mean, with my attorneys, to continue my example, it's a very interesting phenomenon that I noticed when we started in the early days. It was very often the attorney or somebody from the attorney team who actually was reaching out to say, is there something you could do to improve our work? Then you start working on this, and once you get the first results, I mean, it's just a feeling for the time being, but I have the feeling that the better the system works, the slower the work goes ahead, so the longer we have to wait for getting examples, for training the machine and stuff like that. So it's as if with the growing success of the algorithm, you see the human starting to get more and more
reluctant.
They just don't know what happens in there.
And they see that on one hand it's good because they get rid of usually boring kind of work. On the other hand, if their manager then decides to cut the team in half because the boring part of the work is done in half of the time, it relates to their job. So I do definitely think that there will be, at least in sort of the first world, a complete shift in what jobs. So I have 3 kids who are starting to go to university now. What should I tell them to study?
But the interesting, there was just a study released, at least in Germany, and it said how many jobs can already be replaced by robotics, automation, and it was mainly for manufacturing. And there are regions in Germany where you can still replace 70% of the workforce, still. So it's completely wide open, but they're not replaced. So I think the whole shift will take longer than we think. So hopefully it gives people enough time then to learn more things, to adapt. And that's what AI is also doing. I mean, we have a company in Madrid called Lingo Kids, language learning. They do a little bit in that field. So AI is also supporting your learning because it can individualize the whole learning for you. It makes you easier to adapt.
Absolutely. I mean, what is, I think, much more pressing is to sort of rethink the whole school concept. And AI might be a good sort of vehicle to ignite that change.
But I think this is going to happen naturally. I mean, our kids are living in another society, and they are continually in touch with different things that are going to bring them somewhere else.
Yes and no. I mean, on the other hand, we have still this old monastery-style teacher in front situation where we bring our kids every day. This is over 1,000 years old, that concept. I mean, in the meantime, we have neuroscience has discovered how the brain actually does learning and what conditions are best for it. But very little of that is actually penetrated the education system.
You see a lot in Asian countries, also Latin America, because they have this preschool concept, so it's a lot of home teaching, and there the digital technology really takes place. Lingo Kids also sells a lot in those countries.
Because the teacher is more about empathy and understanding the kid and not so much about knowing the facts, because the facts you can get them.
And they change quickly.
However, even if this is true, and we really have to think about our education, our basic education, things not only happen in the school. I mean, they are in the families, they are out in the street, and they are getting in touch with everything. So I mean, we always put all the education pressure on the school, but as a parent, you also have to learn. I mean, and you are confronted every day.
They still learn most from their peers.
Exactly.
That's definitely true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think. What we found out is we cannot say anything about the future of AI. That's probably the nature of things. One thing is clear, I think things will change.
And what for sure is going to happen also is we are going to regulate. We have to make policies around it.
I mean, we are in a very regulatory mood anyway, because we see a lot of things that don't work as we want, and we have to do this.
And as we all know, it's a very old science, the whole neural network machine learning, and we're just starting to learn how it works. We're just starting to get a hold on the data. I mean, there are very few people who are really good understanding everything, so more and more people are coming from universities. So my personal feeling is in the next 5 years, there's tremendous shift, and we really start understanding it.
And actually the revolution, I mean, just dipping on that, the revolution is not on the algorithms, and it's not on the artificial intelligence. There are 2 points in my view. Things are coming together, what is traditional artificial intelligence with all the statistics, but the revolution is on the data. The point is we generate data, we can storage them, and we have access to them, and that's why the revolution is happening now. But it's something that is really very old as a concept.
And something that I'm personally missing in the discussion on AI and all these policy things is what, again, was strongly mentioned in Yuval Harari's book, is the fact that we, in fact, are in front of a combination of disruption, namely from AI and from biotech. Yeah, so they are coming together.
Exactly.
They even start sort of using each other to some degree. So because there we are not only changing what humans think, but we are also changing what humans are in a very biological sense. And I think this combination is really tough to handle. So we have a lot of work ahead.
Cool.
Okay, so I think time's over.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.